Hey everyone. Have you ever felt that pressure? You know what I mean? Like when you're scrolling online and it's just everyone's picture perfect lives
Yeah.
and you're like, "Wait, hold up. My
Totally.
life is not like that."
It's a lot to handle, right? It's like this whole comparison game. And it's especially tough, I think, for Gen Z growing up in this crazy hyper-connected world.
It is. It's like everyone's always showing their best selves, their highlight reel.
Yeah.
And it can be so easy to start comparing and feeling like you're not enough.
Right. Like you're somehow falling behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So we wanted to take a deep dive into this whole thing with self-awareness.
Because it's more than just like a buzzword.
It's like a survival skill.
Exactly. It's a way to understand better manage all those crazy emotions.
Yeah, and make choices that actually help you thrive, not just survive.
You got it.
Okay, but how does self-awareness actually work in the real world? I mean, I get knowing yourself, but how does that help with anxiety and feeling overwhelmed all the time?
Okay, so think of it this way. You're trying to navigate like a new city
Yeah.
without a map. You'll probably get there eventually, but you're going to waste so much time and energy just getting lost, right?
True.
Self-awareness, it's like that map, but for your inner world.
Ooh, I like that.
It helps you understand your thoughts, feelings, even your behaviors, so you can make conscious choices instead of just reacting to everything around you.
So it's like having a roadmap for your emotions.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, but how do we actually develop that self-awareness?
Well, there's a bunch of different techniques, but one of the most powerful ones I've seen is journaling.
Oh, journaling.
Yeah, it's super simple. Just start paying attention to your inner dialogue, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What are those patterns in your thoughts and feelings?
So it's like having a conversation with yourself, but on paper.
Exactly.
Okay, I gotta admit, journaling always seemed a little intimidating to me. Where do you even start?
Honestly, it doesn't have to be complicated at all. You don't need some fancy journal or a specific format. Just grab a notebook and just start writing down your thoughts and feelings.
So just brain dump everything, no filter?
Yeah, pretty much. Don't overthink it. Just let it flow. You can write about your day, what's making you anxious, your dreams, literally anything that's on your mind.
Okay, I can see how that could be helpful.
Hmm.
But what if you're not a writer?
Yeah.
Are there other ways to tap into self-awareness?
For sure. Another amazing technique is mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Yeah, it's all about being present in the moment, paying attention to what you're thinking, feeling even your physical sensations without judging yourself.
So it's like hitting the pause button on autopilot.
Yes, and really tuning in to what's happening inside.
Okay, so mindfulness, isn't that like meditation? I tried that once and I just ended up thinking about a million other things.
Yeah, meditation can be tough, especially when you're first starting out. But mindfulness, it doesn't have to be about sitting in silence for hours. You can actually practice it in your everyday life, you
Yeah.
know? Like when you're walking, eating, even showering. The key is to just bring your full attention to that present moment and notice everything that's coming up.
So it's more about being aware of what's happening right now instead of getting lost in your thoughts.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm starting to see how journaling and mindfulness could actually help, but let's be real. How do these practices actually help with anxiety? It's not like writing in a journal is going to magically make all my worries disappear, right?
You're right, it's not a magic cure. But here's the thing, when you practice self-awareness, you actually start to understand those patterns in your thinking and behavior that are contributing to that anxiety.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, let's say you're constantly scrolling through social media, comparing yourself to everyone else,
Been there.
right? Through journaling or mindfulness, you might start to notice how that habit actually makes you feel more anxious and insecure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about becoming aware of those triggers that set off those negative emotions.
Exactly. And once you're aware of them, you can start to make conscious choices about how you respond to them.
So instead of just being on autopilot and letting anxiety take over,
You're in the driver's seat.
I like that. So self-awareness is like this foundation for actually managing your emotions and making healthier choices.
You got it. It's about understanding yourself so you can create a life that actually feels good and aligns with what you want.
Okay, this is all starting to click. But I'm curious, have you seen this self-awareness thing play out in real life? Like
Yeah.
with someone who is struggling and then use these techniques to actually make a change?
Oh, all the time. I've worked with tons of young people who've used self-awareness to overcome anxiety, build their confidence, and just create more fulfilling lives. In fact, there's this one story that really stands out.
Ooh, I love a good story. Tell me more.
All right, so picture this young graphic designer named Maya, super talented, just starting her career, but also juggling all these side hustles and constantly comparing herself to everyone else's perfect lives on Instagram.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that feeling of being constantly on and trying to keep up with everyone else.
Right. Well, Maya was feeling completely overwhelmed and stuck. She was exhausted, anxious, and she was starting to doubt herself. One night, she was scrolling through Instagram, feeling that familiar pang of envy, and she just stopped and asked herself, why am I feeling so stuck?
Wow, that's such a simple but powerful question. I feel like we all need to ask ourselves that more often.
I agree. And for Maya, that question was a turning point. It sparked this whole journey of self-discovery that led her to try out some of these self-awareness techniques we've been talking about.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happened next? What did Maya do to start tapping into that self-awareness?
So she started with journaling, like just 10 minutes each morning, just writing down whatever was on her mind, you
It's
know?
like a stream of consciousness kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it was anxiety, sometimes it was this cool design idea she had, or even what she wanted to have for breakfast, anything.
Wow, so no strict rules, just her thoughts.
Yeah, and over time, she started to notice these patterns, like how those Instagram deep dives always left her feeling kind of worse, you know?
Not better, like you'd think.
Right. And then she realized her most creative bursts happened when she was hiking alone, not when she was glued to her phone.
That's so interesting. It's like when we actually step back and observe our own experiences, we learn so much.
Totally. And that's exactly what Maya did, seeing those patterns. She was like, okay, I need to make some changes.
So what did she do?
She started setting boundaries with social media, like way less scrolling, and she carved out more time for those solo hikes.
And I'm guessing that made a difference.
Huge difference. Her anxiety went down, she felt way more creative and energized, and most importantly, she felt more like herself.
I love that. It's like proof that self-awareness isn't just some abstract concept. It can actually lead to real change in your life.
Right. And Maya's journey isn't unique. I've seen so many people from Gen Z using these techniques to deal with anxiety, find what they're passionate about, and just build a more authentic life.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've talked about journaling and mindfulness, and we heard how they helped Maya.
Hmm.
But are there other tools or techniques out there that Gen Z can use to like boost their self-awareness?
Totally. One that people often forget about is feedback.
Feedback.
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck in our own heads, you know? But sometimes talking to someone we trust can give us a fresh perspective.
It's like we all have blind spots, and a friend or family member can be like, hey, have you thought about it this way?
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be some formal sit-down thing. Just casually ask someone, what do you think I'm good at? Or what's one area where I could grow?
You might be surprised by what you hear.
Totally. And on that note about getting different perspectives, technology can be a huge help too.
Oh, yeah.
There are tons of apps now designed to help you track your mood, figure out what triggers you, and manage stress.
Yeah, those mood tracking apps are pretty popular. I know people who use them religiously.
Mm.
What I like about them is that they can really show you the link between your thoughts, feelings, and actions.
It's like having a personal data analyst for your emotions.
I love that analogy.
Okay.
So this is all great, but it's hard to remember that self-awareness isn't about being happy 24/7, right? It's
Yes.
about understanding all sides of ourselves, even the messy ones.
You're so right. It's about acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses, the good and the bad, and learning how to navigate all of it with more awareness and a little bit of self-compassion.
I love that. So how can Gen Z use this newfound self-awareness to deal with bigger challenges like relationship problems, career doubts, or just feeling overwhelmed by life in general?
That's where things get really interesting. You know, self-awareness, it's not just about understanding yourself in isolation. It's
Yeah.
about taking that knowledge and using it to like navigate all the stuff in your life, your
Yeah.
relationship, your goals, even just like figuring out what you want to do with your life.
Okay, so how does self-awareness help you with something like relationship drama?
Well, think about those times you felt like totally misunderstood or frustrated with someone. It often happens because we don't really understand our own needs and expectations, let alone communicate them to the other person.
So it's not just about trying to figure out what the other person's doing or feeling. It's about understanding your own role in the relationship.
Exactly. Self-awareness can help you pinpoint those unmet needs or expectations that are causing friction. Like maybe you need more alone time than your partner, or maybe you have different ways of communicating.
And once you figure those things out,
You can start having those open and honest conversations that can actually lead to stronger connections and way less drama.
makes sense. And it's not just romantic relationships, right? This
Mhm.
applies to friendships, family, even those group projects
Mhm.
where everyone's trying to figure out their role.
Totally. It's like this universal key to building better relationships across the board. It helps you understand how you communicate, how you handle conflicts, and what you need from others to feel supported.
Okay, relationships check. What about that feeling of being stuck in a rut or lacking motivation? Can self-awareness help with that too?
For sure. Sometimes we feel stuck because we're chasing goals that don't really align with what we actually value or are passionate about, you
Mm.
know? We're doing what we think we should be doing instead of what truly lights us up.
It's like going through the motions without that spark.
Exactly. And that's where self-awareness comes in. It helps you uncover what truly motivates you, what gives you that energy and makes you feel alive. Maybe it's being creative, maybe it's helping others, maybe it's starting your own business. Whatever it is, when you're going after goals that match your true self, you'll find that motivation comes way easier.
So it's about finding that drive within yourself, not relying on external pressure.
Exactly. And speaking of pressure, let's talk about stress. Gen Z is facing a world that feels super uncertain and that can be overwhelming, to say the least.
Yeah, between climate change, economic stuff, social media drama, it's a lot to handle.
It really is. That's why self-awareness is so crucial for your mental health. When you understand what triggers your stress, you can start figuring out ways to manage it better.
Like, what kind of strategies are we talking about?
Well, let's say you realize that constantly checking the news is making you anxious. You can set boundaries around how much news you consume. Or maybe you notice certain people or places drain your energy. You can try to limit your exposure to those situations. It's all about recognizing your limits and putting your well-being first.
It's like giving yourself permission to take a break and recharge.
Exactly. It's about taking care of yourself so you can show up as your best self in all areas of your life.
This has been such a great conversation. We've covered so much about self-awareness, from Maya's story to practical tips, and how it can help with everything from relationships to stress. But before we wrap up, it's important to remember that self-awareness isn't about achieving some perfect state of being.
Totally. It's an ongoing journey. It's about learning, growing, and evolving. We're all constantly changing and adapting, and that's okay.
It's not about having all the answers, right? It's about being curious and kind to yourself as you explore your inner world.
I love that. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference.
So as we leave our listeners with this final thought, I want to ask you, what's one small step you can take today to get to know yourself a little bit better?
Maybe it's starting a journal, trying a quick mindfulness exercise, or asking a friend for some honest feedback. Whatever it is, make that commitment to yourself.
You won't regret it. Your future self will thank you for it.